Hello, hello, hello. Welcome for another episode of Market Leader Live. Hey, it's your host with the most, your main man, Darren M. Palmer. Excited to be with you for this episode where I talk to the people who actually get it done. They are market leaders in their industry. They were able to take their niche or their niche, as we say in Texas or whatnot, and they're able to take it to another level. Today we have on the show the wonderful, the brilliant, the bold, the genius herself, Dr. Cheryl Lentz.Ay hello to the people, Dr. Cheryl.
Hello, people. It's so wonderful to be here. And what an intro. I hope I live up to your expectations. I'm just saying.
Come on, girl. You got it. You got it. I'm excited to have you on, Dr. Lentz. But if you don't mind, we will have this information in the show notes for those who are listening to be able to connect with you. But we'd like to hear from the source themselves. If you don't mind, share with the people who you are and what you do.
Oh, goodness. How long have you got? My name is Dr. Cheryl. Most of my students call me Doc C because they are in the hunt for their doctorate degree. But I have 2 feet. I have one in academia, 20-year college professor. I still teach. And with COVID, I have spun up way more teaching because they needed us who have the experience online. And then I own my own businesses. I have 2. I have a real estate investing business and I have a publishing business with 3 different imprints. And so I do a little bit of everything, a lot of guest speaking, a lot of consulting. Got to keep my hands in a lot of different pies.
Well, I just wanted we was off air and whatnot, and I just had to ask her, how has she been able to accomplish all this at the little young, tender age of 35 or less? But, she was sharing with me the secrets of how she was able to get it done, the Fountain of Youth and the whole nine. Now, we can't disclose that. That would have to be a premium package for us to have her go in detail on that. But for this particular episode, I want to dive into it because you brought up a great point of you utilizing your skill set in a myriad of ways or whatnot. And so share with us, Dr. Lentz, how you've been able to adapt in this time of the COVID-19 situation or whatnot. How have you been able to pivot and adjust and continue to execute at a high level at what you do?
Well, here's the odd thing. When COVID hit, my world didn't change, at least not initially, because I have always been a college professor in the online space, probably for the last 14 years. I do a lot of traveling, half computer, will travel. I earned my master's and my doctorate when I was in Japan through the online education. So for me, this is just normal. Now, a lot of folks tend to think that this is really new normal for them, but we've had this information since 170 years when the Brits started doing correspondence courses. So initially, I didn't change a whole lot, but what they did do is spin me up. I was spending about half my time in publishing and about half my time teaching. Now I'm spending probably about 85% teaching because there's a lot of folks who need to have some of the skill set that many of us have done this for years, and they'll get there. It'll take them a little while to get there, but it's not something you learn in 20 minutes when you have to be able to do something I've done for 20 years. So this is the part. There are techniques you have to be able to use in there, and so I've been doing them a little bit more, but I've shifted things just ever so slightly, and by that I mean people online, my students needed to see me more. So I now do weekly videos. Some of them are fabulous. Some of them are very vulnerable. When I had a hole in my kayak, my students love that the most. It's like they like me to see and vulnerable. I'm like, hey, bad stuff still happens during COVID, right? I have a hole in my boat and oh my gosh, I love that video best. But it's the idea of connection. They need to see me. They need to know that I'm here. They need to know that I've got their back, and they know that with all of this stuff swirling around, they need to see me more often. So my office hours tend to be busier. My weekly videos have upticked. And a lot of the other things that I'm doing has also upticked, which is really interesting. Particularly a lot of folks want to be able to understand because I do a lot on failure. And apparently this F word is really resonating with a lot of people. So I've been connecting a lot more and getting to people to get to that heart connection, that space that's going to get them off the sidelines and back them into the game.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I told you, don't let her fool you or whatnot. The little young lady, she has a little gusto, so to speak. But when we look at this, Dr. Cheryl, I think as well, perspective and also the positive attitude that you have, because you've been able to adapt, and the uptick is not allowed for you to, I don't sense being overwhelmed with you. You're making the necessary pivots and adjustments. And also you're staying focused on who you're serving as well. When I hear you share this message, hey, they need to see me. They need to be connected with me. And so you're serving at that capacity. So for those who are listening and desiring to be market leaders or to be the ones who are able to serve at another level or whatnot for us, whatever they do, what are some transferable skills that you think any of us can implement if we want to serve at a greater capacity?
I'll tell you, I have a colleague of mine who's writing a forward for our next book that's coming out here next month. And his name is Steve Farber. And his title of his book is Love is Just Damn Good Business. And I think that's just damn good advice. Because the idea is we don't like to talk about the L word, particularly in business or in academia. It's a little too touchy-feely. My students, you can tell their eyes going, uh-oh, here it comes, right? But you've got to have that ability to connect. And they need to know that I'm human, which is why it's funny when I screw up in my videos, I make sure that I share that with them. And they get more excited at my screw-ups than they do at my successes. And part of that is because I'm leading through the conflict. I'm leading through the ability to just say, hey, stuff's going to happen. You feel the fear and you do it anyway. And you do it with grace as much as you can muster. I can't tell you that all of my failures have been that elegant and that wonderfully processed and positive. Sometimes I'm raw, and sometimes they see that Doc C can have a bad day, and you've got to be willing to be human, but feel the fear and do it anyway. So that's the first thing. And also to be risky of being able to connect, because sometimes it's not just about what we have to do in service of others in terms of selling things and being in business. It really is, how do you connect with people? Because I know folks that I've been connecting with years. Now the relationship's going to be built. You got to take time. You can't jump into that business relationship too quick. So get to know your people, get to spend time with them, talk to them, the good, the bad, the ugly. But it first starts by being personal. And I think sometimes we're a little bit too standoffish or a little bit too quick. And we want to be able to people first, then profits. People first, then business.
Ooh, value bombs being dropped, people, by Dr. Cheryl Lentz. I told you, as the great Alicia Keys said, that girl is on fire right now. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm listening to what you're sharing about the understanding of the people and actually serving them, and then that will be the profits. I like to have the I squared method of what we share here is, wherever you have impact, you'll have income. So where you are positively impacting someone, the income will follow. It's just because that's just what happens. If you're able to help more people by delivering packages quicker, if you are Amazon or whatnot, and you got Prime, people are willing to invest a premium on that because it makes their lives better. And I look at what you're doing, Dr. Cheryl, the same way of being genuine and being authentic. And people want to actually have want to be in connection with humanity. And you might say, Darren, what do you mean by humanity? I'm bringing up humanity because it's only so much a bot is going to be able to do. And I want you all listening to that, to hear that. Go ahead, Dr. Cheryl. I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, we have to be willing to be human, but it's not easy. And I work with coaches all the time. They're like, when life goes easy, it's simple. When success comes, we can brag about it. We can smile about it. It's when things don't go right that it's not so easy. And that's where leadership shows up. And that's where character shows up. And that's where I don't think enough people have good examples of how to be able to get through this. So when something goes wrong, I will tell my students, here's how the reaction, here's the emotions, here's the pieces that we can help move you forward. Because a lot of my students and a lot of people are stuck. They're sitting on the sidelines because they're so afraid of making a mistake. They don't know what to do, so they do nothing. I'm here to be able to teach failure. And part of what my technique is, fail faster, succeed sooner. Failure is something that stucks people all the time. And I got stuck for 30 years in one of my most epic failures. My TED Talk's coming up in a few weeks. And let me tell you, it's going to be as raw and as vulnerable because I've screwed up for 30 years. And I don't know anybody who's willing to be able to take the stage and say, yep, it was me all the time. And it was pretty epic to be able to look. But here's the secret. Even after 30 years, I'm able to correct it. And I'm able to stand up, I'm able to own it, I'm able to account for it, I'm able to move forward. Because my next book is actually called Failure Has No Alibi. You cannot hide in the shadows. You cannot dance if you're going to be hiding behind. So you've got to be able to take up. And it's tough, trust me. I mean, it's not that you're not nervous when you're doing these podcasts. And it's not that I'm not going to be nervous on stage when I take the stage all over the world. You understand that it's not about you. It's about the people you're serving. And that makes the nerves all the more better going, maybe they'll do it faster than I did. Some of my students have done amazing things way faster than I did. I'm just the catalyst that helps them going, oh, you got this. The wing beneath their wings to encourage them, to love them through it. And sometimes when things get a little raw, you love them a little more.
I love it, Dr. Cheryl. You got to keep it raw and uncut like USDA steaks, girl. And that's definitely what you're doing on here today. And when I'm listening to this, I think that that's the missing ingredient in some of the leadership right now. It's because you see it. You can have people who know all the leadership courses. And this is a unique thing about your training or whatnot and what you're sharing with people. It's okay that you messed up because you're learning from it and you're owning it. And the people around you respect you more because they already know that you're not a superhero. What allows for you to be a superhero to them is because they're able to see that, yes, you're a Superman, but you do have a kryptonite. But you know how to create boundaries and overcome that situation to be able to continue to serve the community and help save lives and impact lives in a positive manner by sharing it. But if you walk around like you RoboCop and that you don't have any heart, you don't have any feelings, and then when something does happen, you don't take accountability for it. Now I can't really trust what you're saying to me now because I can see through it. And you're not willing to address that issue. So no matter how many books that you read, no matter how many John Maxwell books you read, Simon Sinek, the list goes on, Dr. Cheryl Lentz, no matter how many books you look at, if you're not able to own it, the people will not follow you just because you got degrees or you got a title. They got to know you as a person by leading by example, the good, the bad, and the ugly, Dr. Cheryl. So do you agree with that?
Absolutely. This goes back to your humanity statement. We have to dare to be human. And this is the hard part because I have a degree in leadership, all those fancy plaques behind me in there, but I'm always surprised that so many people have their I love me walls, yet so few of my students have good leadership experience. Where is that disconnect? The disconnect is people know leadership. The fact is many people don't do leadership. And what that means is, again, when things go right, it's easy. When things don't go right, you have to be able to lead through the challenges. You have to keep showing up, not hiding. And we have to risk to be vulnerable because anything I'm sharing with you today, it's a risk to my career. It's a risk to my brand. You may decide to just go running to the hills thinking Doc C's all full of, hoopla here. But the idea is I want to be able to look at what I've done and to have that credentials and that earning and that ability to say, yeah, I've screwed up. I failed. But here's the secret. I'm not the failure. Failure is not the outcome. Failure is not the destination. Failure is the learning the process. And if you get up one more time, that's it, just one more time, then you got knocked down. But the problem is we internalize our failure. I know I did. The one I'll be talking about in my TED Talks, I was dismissed from the program, from the University of Illinois music program. No one was ever dismissed. I wasn't good enough. And so what I heard in my head is I suck. Instead of saying, no, the skill I was doing. So here's the inside baseball. Separate you, the person, lovely, amazing, wonderful. Everybody comes to your podcast because it's you. But the skills that you're trying to learn, maybe not so much. And that's where you have people who are ahead of you in the process. We're not above you or below you. We're just ahead of you in the process, including failure. And if we can stand and to be able to say, yeah, it was raw. I've been divorced twice. It was really raw. And the fact that I have to admit to it when you don't want to be one of those women who didn't get it right. I didn't get my happily ever after, at least not yet. But I'm still hopeful and I keep showing up. And that is sometimes the hardest part is you show up when things don't go right. You show up when they do go right. You're grateful either way. And that's the hard part is people, it's like, how do I be grateful for all that horrible stuff? It's like, here's the deal. Failure is a gift. We don't recognize it as a gift. If we did, we might have an easier time of it. Failure has been some of my most magnificent triumphs, but I didn't recognize it in the moment. I recognized it after. And it forced me to shift. What better person to talk about is when I was forced to shift more than 30 years ago to find a new line of work because I wasn't good enough. I found a new line of work. Now I've had an amazing career because of that, not in spite of that. And so many of us, we have to look for that seed of adversity. We have to look for that failure. Sometimes you got to dig deep to find that pony, and you know what I'm talking about, and that pile of you-know-what that's sitting there. But when you do, you're like, I get it. And success only comes if you're willing to get through the failure part of it. But many people want to get to the good stuff before getting through the journey. No shortcuts here, my friend. It's just hard work.
I love it. As my mother would say, hindsight is always 20/20 vision. So when you look back upon your life and you're able to see how the dots connect, you're like, it was good in one of my favorite books that I was afflicted. So I got to go back to this gem that you gave us too. People know leadership, but don't do leadership.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
One of my first books I remember, and I just graduated from my undergrad. And I was waiting to be a sponge, right? I know absolutely nothing. I've got my degree from my University of Illinois, Big Ten. I'm ready to go out and sit in the world. And I'm going, where are all the leaders? Where are all the people teaching? Were you absent the day they taught leadership? And now a lot of my students will agree with me. And here's the problem. They can define it. They can put it on a test. They don't know how to use it. And often they don't. Why? It's risky, 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 risky. You're putting yourself out there, particularly if you want to be an authentic leader and you want to be able to show that I don't have to have all the answers. I have to know where to find them. But most people think if you don't know, you're weak. I think when you have the willingness to be able to look for what you don't know is strength. I just have to lead from the front and have the courage to take the first step. People are going to find behind me. I started a rescue group more than 20 years ago. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But because of my passion and conviction and my courage to do what most people won't, which is to take that first step, I've got a rescue group that's been around since 1997, and now they've had 3 presidents, and we're still doing that work only because I started it. I wasn't as good at it as they are. Thank God they came along, because now they're managing it. They're doing so much better than I did. But I had the courage to be able to say, yo, we need to do something. And we can't sit there, because here's the best advice I was given. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? We can't wait anymore. We don't have the luxury of wait. I don't want to have any regrets when the day is over. I don't want to have any regrets when the end is near. And there are so many people, because of COVID and things that are so uncertain, do it today because you might not have tomorrow. And I think that's a pretty darn good way to live.
I love it. I totally agree with what you're sharing with us, Dr. Cheryl. I'm just amazed with this. I don't know about you all, but I had to put myself on mute over here at the recording of this because I'm hollering, oh, I'm in the 8-man corner, I'm a whole 9 or whatnot. And so I'm just loving this content because this is what we need to hear at this time. Hey, you can make the difference. You can make the change. You don't have to have it all figured out. As one wise gentleman shared with me, Darren, you don't need to know it all. Just stay a chapter ahead. And if you have the mindset to go ahead and move forward, which you know you are called to do, the resources will show up. Wherever you have vision, you will find provision. And so I want to leave you all with that understanding, because it's just like Baby Bear Soup, what Dr. Lentz has been sharing with us. It's just right. So this recipe is a recipe for success in every area of your life, because it allows for you to be you. Understand that failure is a part of the process because you're learning, and it's nothing wrong with learning. You don't see a baby say, "Now I'm not going to ever try to walk again because I fell down several times."
Oh, that's the best part. I wish I could turn everybody into those toddlers who learn to walk, because they're not interested in the walking. They're interested in the cookie that mom has and that grandma has across the room, and they know that walking's going to get them there faster. So what do? They get up, they fall down, they go boom, they giggle, and they do it again and again. They make it a game. I wish I could teach your audience to make failure a game like that child. We learn fear as we get older. I wish we didn't, that we could simply make it a game and say, 2 didn't work, 10 didn't work, 562 didn't work. It doesn't matter. You just got to keep showing up, because if you do, eventually you'll get there and it will work. And it's really cool when it does.
You know, that's amazing. And before we move on, I just want to give an example to some of those who are out there and you're listening, especially with the climate that we're in the world right now during the time of this recording. I was just sharing with a gentleman, Dr. Lentz, of the founder of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, and how many times he was turned down. And so let's look at this for what it is. And this is just mindset right now, and having the mental fortitude to continue to persevere no matter how it looks. He's creating an industry that doesn't even really exist in the United States of America. He's hundreds of times he's told no on funding, but he did just like what Dr. Cheryl Lentz shared with us. He continued to get up. He continued to go to another bank, to another city, to another state. He didn't give up on the dream. And now you see the outcome. How many of us out there who are finding a way? Well, I tried 2 times. You don't understand, Dr. Cheryl. Darren, I tried 8 times. It's not work. Oh, it's my gender. Oh, it's my color. Oh, it's this. But the opportunity was there for Howard Schultz. But if he would have gave up any time before he got to those hundreds of no's, he wouldn't have never been able to experience. But guess what? He got better at his pitch. He got better at the understanding of what they needed to hear from him to be able to get funded. So whenever he was able to get that one yes. And for some of you listening, what Dr. Cheryl Lentz is telling us by dreaming again and making it a game, all you need is one yes. but it has to start with you first, with you saying yes to yourself, of overcoming, understand failure is a part of the process. So
we start dreaming with them, and my students haven't dreamed in years. And I often tell them, it's like, if you couldn't fail, what could you do? If I gave you a magic wand where money was no object, what would you do? And many of them suddenly come up with all things. And I'm going, you know what? I'm not asking you for a kidney. I'm not asking you to solve world hunger. All I'm doing is asking you to make a sandwich in your little corner of the world. Can you make a difference? Can you actually make a sandwich today? Can you brighten someone's day? Can you imagine the world we live in if everybody just woke up and did one smile on one person's face and just passed it along? The options are endless. And I just want them to encourage, you don't have to think that you have to solve it all by yourself. We're all here. That's why we're here as a community, and it takes a village. So if you need support, we've got your back. That's why we're here.
Awesome. Awesome. And speaking of that, I want to keep people on a positive vibe, and I don't want to get out of here without them having the contact information to be able to benefit from your service or just connect with you personally. So if you have social media handles, website information, whatever you have to share, Dr. Cheryl, please share it with our audience right now. And we will make sure to have this information in the show notes as well.
Really easy. Just type me into Google. drcheryllenz.com is the website for all my speaking stuff. You'll find out my YouTube channel, my internet, my Twitter, my hands. I'm all over the internet in there. Come find me. Come play in our sandbox, because we have a really good time despite what's going on. Perspective is everything. And so I'm going to teach you one thing I just learned last week from John Shen, and I love it. Remember, everyone likes to say, fake it till you make it. Oh no, I got one better. Faith till you make it. I think that is the most amazing thing I have learned in 2 weeks, going, you just got to keep believing, and you just got to keep showing up, knowing that you always know, but you faith it before you make it. I'm like, rock and roll. Let's go.
Wow, 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 wow. That's it. That's what we have here when we got Dr. Cheryl Lentz in the building today. Dr. Cheryl, we appreciate you for coming on and just totally just blessing our audience today. I have my notes. I don't know about anybody else, so I'm taking a moment to be selfish on this, because I know that I gleaned a lot from her today and definitely want to connect. And we got to have you on some more stuff, Dr. Cheryl. So I'm going to connect with you offline too, girl, because I got to have you on some other projects we have. And even if it's a virtual event or in person, we got to make sure that we connect for more things. But thank you again for definitely pouring into us. And I want to say thank you too for what the difference that you're making in the world. You're definitely a change agent who are making a difference locally and globally. So thank you for coming on to Market Leader Live.
Absolutely. An honor and a privilege. Please go forth and do great things. That would be the best gratitude in the world.
Awesome. Until next time, remember, if you won't change, be the change. Be blessed and be great.